Oh, Maggie. Hey, Maggie. Maggie works at Express.
Oh, hi. My dog is here. Two of my dogs are here, so I might get a little bit of barking if that's okay.
Yep.
They're not used to me working from home anymore, so like we're still kind of trying to dust off our skills, and we'll see if they behave themselves.
Until someone knocks on the door, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. That's bound to happen. So.
Welcome, Elizabeth.
Hello.
Thanks
Hi.
for joining. We'll just wait another minute, see if any other people join, and then we can go ahead and get started. All right, we'll let people in as time goes on, but I want to be respectful of people's time. We have a lot of good content to cover tonight. Excited to be here. Thanks for joining again. I'm Elizabeth, and I'm with Express Credit Union. I'm a cooperative, member-owned financial institution committed to helping our communities thrive. One of one of the things we want to do at Express is really provide tools, resources, and support people need to protect their assets and build financial stability. We're excited to partner with the Federal Trade Commission for today's webinar and to welcome our guest and our host, Laura Solis. Laura is a staff attorney in the FTC's Northwest Region office in Seattle, where she works to protect consumers from unfair, deceptive, and fraudulent practices. Many of her cases have focused on issues affecting Spanish-speaking consumers, and she's received multiple FTC awards for her impactful work, including the Mary Gardner Jones Award for Outstanding Volunteerism, recognizing her advocacy for Hispanic farm workers and activists in Central Washington. We're honored to have her here today to share her insights. During her presentation, feel free to raise your hand or put questions in the chat when you think of them, or you can save them till the end, but we're happy to answer questions as we go. We'll also be recording this presentation so that we can share with others to learn and to hear what Laura has to say for us tonight. So with that, I'll hand it over to Laura to get us started.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. As Elizabeth said, I have been, sorry, this is where the dogs start. I've been with the FTC for 15 years, and the entire time in the Northwest Regional Office in Seattle. I am delighted today to be with you to talk about avoiding scams, fraud, and identity theft. And to answer your questions as you have them. I will try to check the chat. I think, Elizabeth, if you can maybe just help me out if you see a question in the chat. I'm happy to, as we go, so you don't forget your questions, and you can save your questions till the end if you want, and I'll try to save some time to answer some of those. Before I get started, I need to say that the views I share today are my own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the FTC, any individual commissioner, or any other component of the agency. Great, so we will get started. And what we're going to cover today is a brief intro to the FTC, what we do, why we're here. And then I'm going to spend probably the bulk of our time today talking about some reporting highlights from consumers who report to the FTC and to other organizations for 2024. So we'll talk about what consumers have told us and some of the trends that we're spotting. And then we'll talk about tips to avoid scams, tips to avoid identity theft, and then cover some free resources from the FTC that you might find useful for your organizations. So very briefly, about the agency, we are the nation's consumer protection agency. Our office is our main office. We're headquartered in DC, but we have 8 regional offices throughout the country, including our office in Seattle. And we work to prevent fraudulent, deceptive, and unfair business practices in the marketplace. And to do that, we have several tools at our disposal. We can investigate companies or people who are violating the law. We can sue companies and people for violating the law. We can develop rules. We can also educate consumers about their rights and businesses about their responsibilities. And this is really important for us because in my 15 years of the agency, I know that the hardest thing to do is to unring the bell. You just can't, once someone has paid a scammer, it is very difficult to get people their money back, if that's even possible. And there is also just an element of trust that people lose when they are scammed. And so trust in government, trust in other businesses, and that's something that we want to avoid as much as possible. And in order to do that, we rely very heavily on our community partners. They are critical in getting our messages out to the consumers. So when we start to see patterns or alerts that we want to push out, we rely on our community partners to give that information to the folks that they work with. So I'm going to focus mostly on fraud reports for 2024. When someone reports fraud to us, that information goes into a database called Consumer Sentinel. And what we do with that database is we look at it for trends. We look at it for things to, warn consumers about in consumer alerts. We also use it as a way of generating investigations. So we'll find targets to investigate or potentially to sue based on the reports that we get from people who file reports to us. We also, that the database also includes reports that come to other organizations or law enforcement agencies, for example, groups like the BBB and, or the Better Business Bureau, I should say, and the AARP also contribute to that database. And that helps us to really spot some things that might be happening out with consumers and allows us to kind of get ahead of things. And then every year around March, we will publish a data book that is public, and we will cover like highlights that we spot. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today in the next several slides. So for 2024, the number of fraud reports we received was 2.6 million. And the reported fraud losses that we saw consumers reporting were $12.5 billion of losses. Largely, the number of reports has stayed the same from 2023. But one notable thing is that reported losses have increased by $2.5 billion over 2023. And so that's an increase. Now more than 1 in 3 people who reported a scam also reported losing money, and that's up from 1 in 4 in 2023. So people are losing more money than they did in 2023. The top fraud categories that we're seeing are imposter scams, number 1, online shopping and negative reviews are number 2, business and job opportunity scams are number 3, investment scams are number 4, and internet services scams are number 5. And so I will talk in more detail in the next several slides about number 1, 3, and 4. So we'll table those for a minute, but online shopping and negative reviews are basically people say that they didn't get what they ordered maybe online, or they are being charged for something that they didn't order. And then internet service scams can include things like reports that someone was offering a fake discount for internet services. That's one example of those kinds of scams. So the
We do
number
have
one,
a
oh,
question,
sure.
Laura, in the chat about the Washington Attorney General's office doing similar work and if there's a
Yes.
difference between the Attorney General and the FTC and what they can do.
We do overlap in terms of, they do consumer protection work as well. There are, we kind of are national, they will say that too. I think that they can focus on scams that are also affecting consumers nationwide, but they are going to be focused on Washington consumers, and we focus on the nation's consumers. And so that's one difference. But and they have, there our statutes can be different. There are some that overlap. We often take joint actions together in terms of attorney general's offices. We may take joint actions, and so we'll file complaints together. Um, and so, yeah, it is very similar. And I think that, I think that it's mostly about like what it is that we're focused on. Depending on who's in charge at our agency, the focus can be, different than, depending on the makeup of the commission. And so, but there definitely overlaps to the work that we do. They just enforce kind of a different statutes, and we have the FTC Act and a bunch of other statutes that are sort of nationwide in effect. So, good question though. All right, so let's see. Okay, so imposter scams are the number one reported fraud in the United States and in Washington state as well. Imposter scams are when someone pretends to be someone that they're not, someone you trust. It can be a government agency, it can be a friend, a family member, a company that you do business with, a company that you trust and you know very well. It can be pretty much anybody. And the point of imposter scams are to steal your money or your personal information or your financial information. Um, about 1 in 5 people who reported an imposter scam reported losing money to imposters. And these kinds of scams can start in sort of any number of ways. They can start in a text message or an email, over the phone. Social media are some of the, common ways of contact. And I think one of the things that's interesting about these is that they can use legitimate information. And that's because sometimes we put that information out into the world. And so if someone's monitoring your social media or someone sees something on your social media, they might actually have a lot of information about you, and they can use that to scam you. And another way is that we can give it to them as we're interacting with them. And so one example I can think of is my brother. We were over at my parents' house for Thanksgiving a couple of years ago, and it was kind of chaotic in the house. And his job was to figure out why the cable wasn't working because they wanted to watch the football game. And so he did a internet search and with the name of the company, the cable company, and thought he found the address for the cable company, the website for the cable company, and he called the number on that website. And he said, "We have an internet outage." And they said, "Oh, yeah, we know about that internet outage. We can see it here. We can't resolve it today. It's Thanksgiving, but if you pay us some money, we can resolve that for you today. It's just that we don't have a lot of staff here, and so we can't resolve it, on our regular, charges until tomorrow." And so, knowing that he basically told them that we had an internet outage and that he needed to see the game, and they were aware that it was Thanksgiving. And so all of those things, kind of like, they use the information he gave them to make it sound convincing. And then he, again, it just chaos, and he's really kind of feeling pressure to resolve this issue. And so he gave them his credit card information, not really thinking like, why wouldn't they just charge the account, right? And so he gave them his credit card information. It turned out to be a scam, and it was not the cable company. And then later, when he thought about it, he's like, that didn't really seem right. And so then he checked with my mom, and it turns out he got the number for the cable company, and they told him, "No, this is a common scam. People have been reporting this to us a lot." So again, it can be something that sounds legitimate, and oftentimes it can be us that, we're giving that information to the scammers to make it sound more convincing. And so, as you know, so they'll do like what they did with my brother is they'll say there's a problem, or they say there's some issue, and that they need to get your money, or they can transfer you to somebody who can help, and then eventually they'll get your information or your money, like in my brother's case. They also are very good, scammers are very good at responding to what's in the news. And so, they're really trying to find something that is going to resonate with people. It's going to play into their fears or their concerns. And so, I wanted to talk specifically about Medicaid enrollment scams because Medicaid has been in the news a lot lately. And we have seen these kinds of scams that target people who are eligible for Medicaid by impersonating, a government agency. So generally, what to know about these kinds of scams is that, um, they'll try to get you to pay in a specific way. A lot of times, they'll sort of draw out information from you about retirement accounts or, bank accounts, investment accounts, and they will then start to direct you to transfer money from those accounts to them in some specific way. So they'll tell you how to pay. And government agencies won't do that. They just won't do that. They're not concerned about how you pay, like how you're moving your money. And so that can be a red flag in terms of something that doesn't sound quite right, right? So just if you hear that, that's a red flag. Also, it's specific to Medicaid. Medicaid won't charge you to renew or enroll. The other thing to know is don't click on links to unexpected text or email messages. A lot of these are coming through text messages where it says, you're going to be kicked off of Medicaid. If you're not expecting it, even if you are on Medicaid, if it's something that you were not expecting to receive, that's another red flag. And if you are at all concerned about the legitimacy of a text message or an email or something like that, go to your, letter from Medicaid, go to something that is the actual contact information and contact them that way. And so, you can ask your question to them specifically, kind of like my brother with the cable company. Eventually, he did get the real number, and then he called them and he said, was this a scam, or what was going on there? Let's see. And then start at medicaid.gov to apply or renew for your coverage, and healthcare.gov if you need new insurance. That is, one rule of thumb that I'm going to caveat it, but generally speaking, .gov is what you're going to want to see to know that you're dealing with a real government agency. But I will say that scammers are also getting they know that people are going to be looking for that. So I think I have seen specific things where it does say like gov in the link somewhere. So just be careful about that too. But .gov is generally, as a rule of thumb, what you're going to want to see to know that you're dealing with a legitimate government agency. All right. So okay. So in terms of the number 3 most reported scam for 2024, it's job scams and employment agency losses. And the reason I wanted to focus on this one is because the data shows that both the number of reports and the amount of losses have increased by a lot. So here are some figures for 2020, 38,000 reports. These kinds of scams for 2020 rose to 105,000 in 2024. And then total losses from 2020 were 90 million, sorry. And then 2024, 501 million, which represents a 450% increase in losses. So one thing that job scams have in common is they tend to try to get someone to pay upfront for something. So it can be for training purposes, for certificates, for equipment, just for the job itself. They'll start to say, in order to get this thing, leads on a job, things like that, you need to pay upfront. Another thing we're seeing more of is task scams where, and there are some platforms that are, legitimately you can earn rewards on to do specific tasks. So oftentimes like repetitive tasks like playing games, or reviewing a product or things like that. And the scam versions of these, what happens is they will send you a link or some app, and you'll be doing these repetitive tasks, you'll be liking things, and then as you do them, your counter of how much you're earning starts to go up and up and up. And so at a certain point, they will then ask you to pay in order to get your money out or to, do the next task. And once you do that, you're not going to get your money. You're not going to get the money that you thought you earned, and you're going to lose the money that you send to them. And that's just how they work. So one rule of thumb for avoiding these kinds of scams is to never pay someone in advance to get a job, or to get paid, or to buy equipment, things like that. That's going to be a sure sign of a scam. Okay, so investment scams were the fourth most reported scam in 2024. And it's one that I wanted to highlight because they have the biggest losses. So as you can see on the graphic from 2022 to 2024, the amount that people are losing to these kinds of scams just keeps climbing. And a majority of people who reported an investment scam, like 80% of people who reported an investment scam lost money. And the median loss for this type of scam is over $9,000. So it can be really, really expensive for people who experience this kind of scam. These scams generally work when someone tells you that you're going to make a lot of money investing in some sort of hot new money making opportunity. It can be something like cryptocurrency. It can be another kind of investment. They offer to help you invest, or to teach you to invest, or to buy a product that will help you to make the right investments that will make you money. And if you end up paying the money, you can be out the money that you paid them. And one of the things they tend to do also is to try to convince you to act quickly. So they will say things like, space is limited, you have to act fast. There's only one more spot available, and if you don't take it, someone else is going to take it. It's kind of like fear of missing out kind of vibes, right? So like they just want you to act quickly. They don't want you to think about it. And then once you start investing, it then becomes difficult because now you're sort of bought into it. And so it becomes more difficult for people to sometimes see that it's not working. So in order to avoid these kinds of scams, you want to do your own research. So never just believe what somebody says about how much money you're going to make. What you can do, and this is true for other kinds of things that you run across, is, and you're not sure whether it's a scam, you can type in like to an internet search, the name of the company, and then a word like scam or review or fraud or complaint, that kind of thing. Because what you may find is that other people have experienced they did do the investment, and they will tell you like on public forums like what their experience was. And a lot of times you can find out that these are scams in that way, because people will say this, I was scammed out of a lot of money and this is my experience. Also, it's easy to invent stories about success and testimonials. It's very easy to do that. So just know that that's very possible. People can, send you pictures, or you can see on their social media pages or pictures of like luxurious vacations that they're taking, or nice cars, or, all kinds of things like that. It's just very easy to do that. But just know that there are no such things as guaranteed returns in investments, and no such thing as a risk-free investment. So if someone is making that claim that there's a guarantee, or it plays down the risk, that's a big red flag that it is a scam. All right, and I think this might be my final slide on, oh no, actually I got another one, but this, you might think that older folks are getting scammed more often than younger folks. I think that maybe that's what we might think is happening. But in fact, younger people reported losing money more often than older people with respect to fraud. So for 20-year-olds in 2024, 44% of people who reported a fraud lost money to the fraud. And that compared to 70-year-olds, for whom that number was 24%, who reported to us lost money to a fraud. However, when older consumers pay money, they tend to lose more money than younger people when younger people pay money to a scam. So for 2024, consumers in their 20s lost a median amount of $417. And for consumers in their 70s, they lost a median loss of $1,000. All right, so, and then finally, how are people being contacted when they pay money to a scam? What are the ways that they're being contacted? For phone calls represented the highest per person reported losses. Started that kind of scam started on the phone, and that median loss was 1,500 for people who reported that they lost money to a fraud. And for social media represented the highest overall reported losses at $1.9 billion. And then email represents the highest overall number of reports. So the highest overall number of reports came from a scam that started over email. Great. Oh, one more slide on this. Okay, and the top payment methods and losses to scams. The top three, so bank transfers and bank payments were the top way that people paid money to a scammer. That's at $2 billion. And then not that far behind at number two is paying through cryptocurrency. I was not able, didn't have time to like compare what that number was for like 2020, but I'm gonna guess that that probably is higher. That's not, I'm not sure if that's the case, but I'm guessing that that's going to be higher than it used to be. And then the distant third was payment apps or payment services as well. Okay, so all right, so tips to avoid scams. We talked about some of the tips, already with respect to some of the other specific kinds of scams. But generally, I just want to like convey that there's two things that I see a lot when you talk to someone who has experienced a scam and given money to a scammer. And that is shame and embarrassment that they actually, fell for something like a scam. And I think I also see that same kind of phenomenon with people who haven't paid money to a scammer yet. And it's kind of an arrogance a little bit of like, that's never going to happen to me because I'm too smart for that. And, um, you know, if you have experienced a scam, it has nothing to do with how smart you are. In my experience, I've seen this a lot. There are people who are PhD level education in a really hard field that have fallen prey to a scammer. And I think the reason is because how convincing a scam is just depends on your specific situation. And scammers know that, and they're very good at what they do. And they're not trying to scam like every single person. They just need to scam enough people that they are going to make money. And so it might that like Medicaid text saying that you're going to lose your coverage, that might not work for everybody because not everybody is on Medicaid. And so for some people, they're going to just think, well, that's just a scam. That's obvious. But for that person who is on Medicaid, that is going to look different, right? So it just depends on your specific set of circumstances. And it could be just complete coincidence. It could be an absolute coincidence that they just happen to know that, you have reasons to be concerned about that. And then they get that one person or that two people or whatever it is. And for those people, it's going to be more convincing. So, the tips to avoid scams that we give are generally, they're like applicable to lots of different kinds of scams. Um, and, the biggest picture thing is to kind of just slow down, just slow down. because scammers are going to want to pressure you. They are going to want you to not have time to think. They're going to want you to just make a quick decision. And then once, you make that decision, it gets harder and harder sometimes to see the scam because then they're able to use the information that you give them to make the scam more convincing and more convincing. And so, generally speaking, that's kind of like just slow down is the biggest tip that we can give. But some other things to think about is don't give your personal information in response to an unexpected request. So the key here is unexpected. Um, One of the scams that I've seen a lot lately, it not just it's like in our neighborhood when people talk about it on neighborhood apps is the toll booth scam. Like it's like a text message that has a link that says, you owe money because you crossed a toll bridge and now you have to pay it. And it's, I think they specifically say WashDOT or the Department of Transportation or something like that. And again, for some people who know that they never crossed a toll bridge, that might be really obviously a scam. But then for other people who maybe don't cross toll bridges often, but they did one day, and now they think maybe that's something that's legitimate. If you're not expecting that request, just, that's a red flag. If you think that it might be a legitimate request, you can, contact the Washington State Department of Education at, at the, the contact information that is accurate. That's something that you can do. Similarly, don't click on links in text messages and emails, in DMs. Oftentimes, they will send you to some other site where they eventually will try to get money from you or will try to convince you to give money to them. Or they can download malware and they can steal your money that way. Recognizing the signs of a scam is important, like that pressure. It's always going to be like you have to act quickly. There's pressure. The way they do this a lot is that you're going to get something really good. You won a prize, for example, you've won $1 million. Alternatively, it can be something really bad that's going to happen to you. So you'll lose your Medicaid coverage, for example, or you're going to be arrested for something. That's a very common scam. Someone calls you and says they're from a sheriff's department and you're going to be arrested for something. So recognize that they're trying to create that sense of anxiety in you so that you won't think about what they're telling you. And they often tell you, like we talked about, to pay in a very specific way. So they'll give you instructions about getting a gift card, for example, getting cryptocurrency. Legitimate businesses aren't going to tell you, they're not going to, contact you and ask for this information over text messages or email, or, um, and then, know that government agencies also will not ask you to pay by gift card, money transfer, or cryptocurrency. And then when you know that, when you get one of those text messages, those scammy text messages or calls, block the numbers or block the contacts because you might know it today that that's a scam, but in a week or 2 weeks or a year from now, you might have one of those busy days like on Thanksgiving where people are just, chaos is happening and it might look differently to you in the future. And so it's good to just in advance just to know and to block it and just help yourself out, for the future. And then don't act right away. Again, I said this, knowing that they want to pressure you, that they want you to act quickly. Slow down. Any legitimate business is not going to is not going to pressure you to make a decision very quickly. They'll let you take your time. There's no reason why you can't just hang up the phone and say I need to talk to a family member or something. And you'll know a lot of times when you start to push back on the speed with which they want you to make a decision and you say I gotta talk to my family member, they will then ramp up and then it'll start to potentially become a little more obvious what they're angling for. So a lot of times they will resort to insults and they'll say, why do you have to talk to your spouse? Aren't you your own person? And sometimes they'll kind of expose themselves that way as you're kind of thinking of you telling them that you want to take time to think about it. And then talking to someone, just sometimes that just helps for you to listen to what, when you're telling somebody else, it just helps you to understand what they're actually saying. It allows you to get a chance to think about what they're saying as you're describing it to somebody else. So always, take the opportunity to actually talk to somebody that you trust. All right. So we've been talking about fraud categories so far. And the second highest number of total consumer reports that are not fraud related have to do with identity theft. And essentially, identity theft is when someone takes your financial information or your personal information without your permission, and they use that information to open accounts in your name, like bank accounts or credit accounts. They can also file taxes in your name and get your tax returns. They can get medical care in your name. They can make purchases in your name. And in some cases, they can even get arrested in your name. They can actually give your name if they get arrested. And that can cause you problems, obviously. Um, so what we recommend for people to um, avoid identity theft or to know that it's happening is to monitor your free credit reports, your bank statements, your credit card statements, all of those things to look for signs that someone else has opened an account in your name or someone else has been doing something in your name. So you'll want to monitor when you get a free credit report or your credit report, you'll want to monitor and make sure that you recognize every account, that you recognize the amount of money that they say that you owe, all of those things, your name, make sure that's correct. That can also be a sign. Your addresses, all of that is information that you're going to want to look at. And same thing with your bills, review your bills, look for charges that you don't recognize. If you stop getting a bill, that can be a sign that someone has changed your billing information. So that's one red flag. I know a lot of people are using like online kind of billing. They don't, get that paper bill anymore, but same principle. If you start getting locked out of your account, that could be a sign that someone has stolen your identity. Um, all right. And so let's see. Protect documents that have personal information in them. Again, this might be more relevant to, another time where people used to get a lot of information in paper mailed to them. I remember a time where you used to get like your bank would send you your full account numbers. That doesn't happen really anymore. A lot of people have gone to online banking and online statements. But anything that has your personal information on it, you're going to want to make sure that it's shredded, stuff with addresses on it. Anytime you're, trying to you have someone, come into your home, sometimes you want to make sure that some of that stuff is just out of the way and not accessible to people. When you're giving out your social security number, again, it used to be something that was just everywhere. Like your social security number was attached to you and they just put it on paper. um be more guarded with that, and make sure, even if it's some like your doctor's office or someone that you're dealing with that you do trust, like ask, do you really need my social security number? They might, and they might tell you yes. But it might just be a remnant of something that is left over from another time and they don't really need it. So just make sure when you're giving it out that you're giving it out to the right person and that you actually have to give it out. And then, like we've already talked a little bit about this, protect information from scammers online and on your phone. So don't click on those links that you don't recognize, and make sure that you're not giving out information over the phone. Make sure that you're talking to the actual person who you're trying to talk to when you're giving out information over the phone. If you have experienced identity theft or you know someone who has, we have a website called identitytheft.gov where you can go to get a recovery plan and file an identity theft report. And this can make it so much easier than it used to be. way back when, it just used to be all of this information was in a booklet, and we would give the booklet out, and it was like a really thick, stack of papers, and now this interactive site makes it so much easier. So this is what you will see when you go to that website, and you'll want to, hit the Get Started button. This is just sort of a static representation of it, but it has up to, I think, 30 different scenarios for, like, for example, if you got a notice that your information was accessed in a data breach or something, or if you lost your wallet, those are a couple of the different kinds of scenarios that you might encounter. And so what you'll do is you'll, select the scenario that most applies to you, and then it will give you a personalized plan for recovery. It will also allow you to access the form documents that you might need. So if someone did steal your identity, what you'll want to do is contact the, say it was a credit card that they opened. You'll want to contact the credit card company. You'll want to contact the consumer reporting agencies. They will give you that information so that you have it, the right information. They'll give you form letters that you can use, and a checklist that you can, go down. It's interactive, so you can actually log in and create an account and then just go back to it. So as you complete tasks, you can, mark them off on a checklist, and then you can go back, to where you were after you log out. And like I said, it also allows you to report identity theft to us. And so that will get kind of put into our Consumer Sentinel database. But that report you can use to challenge the charge or the account opening with, for example, a credit card company or with the consumer reporting agency. So it makes it really easy to do all of those things at once. It's also available in Spanish at robodeidentidad.gov. And you can see that radio button in the top right corner. Okay, so I think you all probably know about how to get a free credit report, but I think it's worth just mentioning here that you can get a free credit report at annualcreditreport.com. Okay, so this is not .gov, like, so just think, when I said .gov, this is not an actual the government website, but it is the place where you can access your free credit report that you are entitled to receive by law. So this is the website where that happens. There are other websites where they might sound similar, but they may charge you money to either get your credit report or get a credit score. So just be aware that they might be, it might be a different website that you're dealing with, but this is the one, the official website to get your free credit report. Consumers are entitled to get one copy of their free credit report every year from each of the 3 credit reporting agencies by law. However, annualcreditreport.com has, since the pandemic, made available a credit report for free every week. And so it's something that you can take advantage of now. It's great. So you can get a free weekly credit report from all 3 of the main credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So like I said, you want to review it carefully, make sure that you recognize everything. And let's see, if there are mistakes, you want to contact the credit bureau and the business that reported the information. If you have experienced ID theft, you might want to put on a credit freeze or credit alerts, and identitytheft.gov will help you do that and will tell you what the difference is between the two and how long they last. And know that you don't have to pay anyone to dispute inaccurate information on your credit report. You can do that for free. There's nothing that there's nothing a company could do for you that you can't do for yourself. So just know that. And then, we rely very much on consumers to report fraud to us. It's very important for our ability to create presentations like this, for us to know what the new trending scams are. It's very important for us to be able to identify targets for our investigations, and to, that then may turn into a lawsuit against a company to enjoin their behavior and to also potentially get money back for consumers. So we really need your help when it comes to reporting fraud and encouraging others to report fraud to us. We do not handle individual cases, but as I said, these are really important for our investigations. And let's see. And it also helps with us being able to, do consumer alerts to people so that if there is something that's going on, we can push out consumer alerts to warn people about the trending frauds. The address to report fraud is reportfraud.ftc.gov, or in Spanish, reportefraude.ftc.gov. You do not have to give your name. It can be an anonymous complaint. We appreciate all of the information that you can give us, but we also understand that people may prefer to report it anonymously. You can also have someone else report on your behalf too. And then we also have a language line where you can report fraud in your own language. We have multiple languages. We take reports obviously in English and Spanish, but also in Mandarin, Tagalog, Vietnamese, French, Arabic, Korean, Russian, Portuguese, and Polish, among others. And again, it's really important for us to hear from multiple communities, from all communities, about fraud that's happening. And we encourage people to use that language line if they need it. We have free print materials available that you can use if you are, you have consumers that you want, like if these are bulk orders. So if, you have like a waiting area that you want, to maybe put out publications, these publications are free. They're free shipping. You don't have to pay for printing or anything. You can just order. The only thing is that you'll end up ordering a lot that like, so they'll come in like a bulk. It's a bulk order site. So it's at ftc.gov/bulk order. And you can get, this is some of the samples of things that you can get: bookmarks, booklets, among other kinds of materials. And we also have materials available in multiple languages. We haven't, translated every one of our materials, but there are lots of materials that we do have that are translated in the languages that you see here. And you can go to ftc.gov/languages for that information. And then we have free consumer education resources. Some of those we've already talked about. I do want to highlight the let's see, the reentry materials to help reentering and incarcerated consumers, and our fraud alerts for up to date. You can get up to date information and tips for avoiding scams. And what else? Let's see. I think we've talked about most of this stuff. Oh, consumer.gov is another one. So this is a free resources for trainers. This information is kind of helpful for people who are teaching other people, whether it be in a financial literacy class or high school, or students who are not, maybe don't have a bank account and are trying to figure out how to open a bank account. So consumer.gov has basic information about managing your money, using credit and loans, and protecting your identity. This is appropriate for any literacy level, and it comes with worksheets and lesson plans that you can use for those audiences. And we also have information for small businesses. Small businesses can also be victims of scams. So that we have information about how to detect and avoid scams that affect small businesses, as well as cybersecurity information that folks can use to keep the information that they have safe. We have resources to help immigrants and refugees avoid scams, and to know where to get real immigration help. It's available in multiple languages at ftc.gov/immigration. We have a campaign to help older adults and others start conversations about scams. Again, it has those presentations that are already in the can with slides and scripts to use. That's at ftc.gov/pass it on. And then we have information for folks who are looking to get out of debt or to improve their credit scores. Information about credit counseling and other debt relief services. There can be scammy debt relief servicers out, or credit counseling and debt relief services out there. So it's important to get information about how to find the right help.
There's
And
a
then, oh,
question in
sure.
the chat about resources
Yeah.
for apartment homes, like when you're renting, and then
Let's see.
senior friendly resources.
So Pass It On is going to have the senior friendly resources. It's like in a wide variety of topics, and it's actually good for like any real consumer group. It's more designed for seniors because seniors have had a lot of experience, and so a lot of things they already know, and so it's more to help seniors pass on the information to other folks. I want to say that the Washington State Attorney General's office has apartment like can you remind me what the question is about? What about apartment renting? Is there anything specific or just like how to do that?
Probably people looking for apartments and different scams when you're like applying for apartments. Vicky, you
Yes.
can.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry if I can interrupt really quick.
yeah.
We have community members looking for like apartments and homes, and they have been scammed when they get to the place and it's already been rented out. And
Oh.
so
And
um
what are they
we
doing?
are
Are they like paying for something in
yeah, they
advance?
get there and then the house is not actually for rent. So there has been occasions where also another one they put down, I don't know how they transferred the money to put it down, but when they went there, it's not even available. So
Yeah, I
um
know what you're talking. Are, I think I have seen that scam, especially on like community social media pages.
yes.
Where, yeah, I saw that a lot. And it's because like some of my own family was sharing that information, like, oh, here's this house that's for rent and it's really cheap.
Yeah.
It's always like really cheap.
Yes.
And then it's actually they just took that picture off of some like, real
Yes.
estate website. Yes. We do have I let me see if we have specific information
Yeah.
about
Because
that.
we do have a lot of like migrant communities are looking for places, apartments, and they when they
Yeah.
see something that is so inexpensive, they just jump on it and they don't know the process and knowing about scams, and it's just too late. So I want to
Yeah.
help avoid just providing those resources on my table just to let them know like, hey, this is what the process is. This is what you so I'm glad I'm
Yeah.
here. But yeah, I would love to have some kind of resource for that as well. Thank you.
Okay, let me see what I can do. I have seen those scams that you're talking about. I think probably when I saw them for the first time, I was like, how does this work? Like I wasn't really sure how it worked. We do have at consumer.gov, I know we have information about renting apartments, but I don't know if it actually addresses that kind of thing. But let me see if there's an alert or something about those kinds of scams that I can send to you. Or it could be that maybe we should write something about that and push it out to consumers. Is it possible? Can you? I'm going to show my email at the end of the presentation. Could you send me an email asking about that, just reminding me, and then I'll see what I can find for you. Okay.
That works. I'll make sure to get it to her too if that doesn't happen, but looks
Okay.
like she's got a thumbs up there.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. And so consumer alerts, and this is, maybe a good topic for a consumer alert, but that's the kind of thing that we push out when we see stuff like this, right? When it's like something that might be very specific to a certain community, something that we're seeing a lot of. To sign up for consumer alerts, you want to go to ftc.gov/consumer alerts. A lot of times when it's like a hurricane is going on, that's a time for scammers, a right time for scammers to kind of step in and capitalize on people's need. And so this is how we get the message out to consumers through these kinds of alerts. Um, and then we're kind of on all the social medias, so you can stay connected to us through any number of these ways. And yeah, and that's it. And that's my contact information. Feel free to email me and we can talk more about it. I think if you have also, Vicky, if you have more information that you want to share with me about like what might be happening here, I'm happy to chat with you and see if we can, figure out the kind of like what the scam actually is. I think that would be helpful for me to know. But if you have any questions for me now, we have like 7 minutes left. You can ask it now, or you can also just email me with any questions or concerns now or in the future if something comes up.
Thank you, Laura. And it's also just a reminder, Express Credit Union is a trusted partner, right? So if any of our members or community partners are hearing of these things, like just email us or call us and talk it through. We've had members do that many times, and we've been able to help them realize it is a scam and save some money. So we're a resource as well for you and can reach out and help.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful that you reached out to us and that I got a chance to talk with you all. And I'm looking forward to doing it again. You know, if you need my help with anything else in the future, just a question, just let me know.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you everyone for being here tonight. We appreciate your presence. We'll share the recording with everyone and feel free to spread it and share it with your networks as well. Because I think just building awareness is how we're going to fight scams. So thank you all. Enjoy your evening and thank you so much, Laura. It was a pleasure.
Same here.
Have a great evening, everyone.